News Latino poll, now it was in February during the primaries, but we asked the question of whether or not we thought that would Marco Rubio change your decision on whether or not you're going to support the Republican candidate at the time? And nearly 25% of those who we polled, of likely Latino voters, said that yes, Marco Rubio on the ticket would actually make me perhaps want to vote for the Republican candidate.
Tell me about Governor Susana Martinez.
Governor Susana Martinez has sort of been in hiding. She hasn't really been out there.
She's a governor. How can she hide?
Well, thank you. I have no idea. Essentially, that's what's happening. I mean,
okay.
Look,
why did you ask her?
Well, because at the time in February, we were looking at possible Latino candidates who were going to perhaps be the running mate. It's literally Marco Rubio and Susana Martinez are really on the short list. Susana Martinez has longstanding, very similar immigration ideas, like Romney does, and she's in New Mexico, and that was perhaps the number 2 go if you trying to bring in the Latino vote. I like to think it's less about being Latino and more about
your
the rhetoric and the immigration rhetoric. That's the idea.
Is that reality?
Well, poll numbers would suggest that it is. I mean, those harsh immigration, Jan Brewer's harsh immigration, it's harsh in terms of how Latinos view it. It's hard line.
Hard line.
It is hard line. Harsh is depending on whether or not you
and whether or not she pointed her finger at you on the tarmac.
Exactly. 70% of Latinos actually were for Obama. Now, this was in February, and it was 14% for somebody like Mitt Romney.
But at that point, the Republican Party was very fractured because you had all those debates going on and everything else.
Right.
So now you got to do it again. I just would be curious to see.
Well, the idea is right now it's really going to be, the jury's still out on whether or not having a Latino candidate will actually make, a running mate would actually make a difference. And
Rick Perry.
And well...
I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing out some names of people who were in border states, of people, but that's not even necessary. Let's think about others. I'm curious. Because I see this with the African-American vote, and it always makes me scratch my head.
Right. Well, maybe perhaps looking at numbers when it comes to President Barack Obama. President Barack Obama has what kind of approval rating with the African-American community? And perhaps looking at that and saying, well, hey, if that works for him, it might work for us with the Latino community. That's just a thought.
Very interesting point.
I mean, you never know.
Brian Yanis is smart.
But you never know. I mean, look, the Marco Rubio speculation is going to continue all the way until a decision is finally made. He is starting to actually show his lighter immigration side away from the typical Republican rhetoric on immigration.
And what would that entail?
Well, he started his own alternative for the Dream Act, which stops short of actually giving citizenship to those who have at least served in the military.
So not amnesty, but a path.
It's a path. It's a specialized visa in that sense. Okay, so all of a sudden, this is what's sort of feeding this speculation that's only continuing. Okay, all of a sudden, Marco Rubio is sort of lightening his immigration rhetoric. Okay, what does that mean? Is that sort of to bring in this Latino vote who are very much for
I mean, that is what we saw Texas Governor Rick Perry saying in the debates.
Right.
When he and Mitt Romney were going at it, that was more of the stance that we were hearing from him.
Right, and I think maybe it's we don't know what's going to happen yet, but perhaps there are those who say that Romney would like to go the route of Rubio because it'll help him with all the rhetoric and all the things he said during the primary that may have turned off Latino voters.
He also gets the young vote. Senator Rubio is how old is he? I don't know how old he is.
He's I don't know how old he is either, but he's fairly young, to be honest with you. And the other thing is 4 out of 10. I mean, he's a big Florida guy, and I think now the nation is starting to look at Rubio. It is a swing state.